We're so addicted to how illogical our life is, and we almost want it that way. The motion of looking, the motion of searching, and searching with your patient, with your client, I think is something that should be emphasized more. And the oud is playing.
I see. Hello, and welcome to another episode of yisroelscorner. Today, I am hanging out with therapist and musician Ariell Bitton. Ariel, thank you for joining me here today.
Good to be here.
I'd like to jump in with a couple questions about psychology.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm curious about clinical issues that you might be interested in, and therapies that you like.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the thing that really prompted my journey into mental health and into this profession, like as a whole, had a lot less to do with, let's say, technical terms like transference and things like that, and more to do with just what it means to be human, like my search for that whole concept. And just all that it took to really get me to where I'm still searching today. So, like, what influenced me, to your question, like what influenced me to be a therapist?
I guess that's a part of it, sure.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'd say like a variety of things. I think my music. I mean, therapists that I've been to in the past. Really just everything that I've experienced, and that's kind of like been my my, I don't want to say goal, but like my sense of the profession. I think it's that I was hungry for the feeling of being human, and I've been speaking to people that were hungry for that same feeling, and I think a lot of what I've been trying to do has been just to try to give people a sense that in this ocean of ideas, speech, of activity, there's a place for them, and that they're able to feel like they are real people, and all of the things that I've mentioned, music, previous therapists that I've spoken to, also, I mean, entertainment, cartoons, literature, the whole thing. I mean, I think a lot of it is psychological. A lot of it is psychology. May not have the patent of credibility that a PsyD or a master's has, but it's every bit as real as a therapist and the theories of Alfred Adler or something.
That is a fascinating perspective. There's a lot to unpack there. Can you speak a little more to what you mean by being human or feeling human?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like music is I would consider music to be a component of that. Music is a whole discussion, but the sense that, the whole concept of emotions is such a puzzling thing. It's like, animals have emotions because they feel danger. They need to bond with other pack members because that ensures survival. You know what I'm saying? So, like, the whole concept of affection is centered around survival, but like there's something human about feeling emotions just because like you want to feel them, just because you're feeling something that you're trying to get to the bottom of. Animals don't sit there and like, assume like a thinking man pose and just like, but why am I feeling this way? So it's something that I was drawn to, and like I've sat with feelings that I was working diligently to try and make legible to somebody, something other than myself. Music was a way of doing that. Comedy, the whole gamut of like ways in which people have historically tried to express difficult feelings, to other people other than themselves. But yeah, like, yeah, it's like, you know.
So would you say then that a lot of your work is focused on learning how to express feelings.
Yeah, and I guess also learning how to be comfortable being a human being, your kind of human being, and, learning to be agreeable, but also learning to advocate for yourself in the sense of, hey, like, these feelings that are particular to me are not symptoms, they're things that enrich the collective and, negotiation, social negotiation.
I see. Are you not a fan of diagnosis?
In so much as it gives people a reference for where to orient themselves as far as their goals, but I think a lot of what I try to do has been about centering the client, client-centered therapy, and really just trying to give people that come into my office a sense of agency, a sense of, oh, like, I have these things that I'm working through, but, like, at the end of it, I'll find myself. I won't find a better, more improved version of whatever it is that I'm trying to do. Like, diagnosis has a bit of that danger for me in the sense that, the client relies on the therapist's definition of what's bothering him or what he's struggling with. Whereas, like, what I've studied through therapy, and what I felt helped me the most was when a therapist was saying, so what you're saying about your situation is X, Y, and Z.
I see.
You know?
So would you say then that you're mostly client or person centered, like Rogerian style therapy?
Yeah, definitely
see.
Rogerian. I mean, again, there are a wide gamut of approaches, all of which are beneficial for the right person. So, definitely try not to be dogmatic about the whole thing. But from what I've experienced, being a client myself, from what I've gathered from how I've sensed people out and how I saw people were responding to what I was saying, I always found it the most rewarding to work with clients and not at them.
Understood. I definitely want to touch on that in a bit, but I'm curious, I guess, if you could take me through what might be a relatively typical session, or, somebody comes in with some sort of issue. How would this perspective about being human, as well as learning to express emotion, music, how does that play itself out in your therapy room?
Well, so there's a lot of things tied up into that. I mean, I think my work with music has sort of allowed me to experience emotions and not just, verbalize them. The whole concept of music is that you experience something before you're able to fully express it. And there is something maybe that children are in tune to, that, it's something that maybe is not as prevalent when you're an adult, but is prevalent in children. I would venture to say it's prevalent in animals, the whole concept of heightened sensitivity, heightened perception. There's a lot there. It ties into sensing danger and a lot of different things like that. But a typical session typically centers on, honestly, like, not something that's like, tell me what your diagnosis has been putting you through today. It's more like, what's going on, like, what brings you in today. Very straightforward thing, and you really just give the floor to the client to just say, I've been dealing with XYZ, my parents don't understand me, and whatever plethora of human problems, a client comes into a therapist's setting to address.
Understood. In my previous podcast, I spoke with Yael Helfgott.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know her?
I think so.
And we touched on, person-centered therapy. And I kind of expressed a little, some of the frustrations I have with it.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, I've certainly benefited in my own therapy with my therapist, just being able to talk things out and having him kind of hold space and assume that I have the answers, right? Which is one of the tenets, right? But on the other hand, I've been through therapy that felt like it wasn't directive enough, right? And I feel like maybe therapy can be a little too passive sometimes.
Sure.
And I think, in my experience, how would I put this? In my experience, sometimes what I'm looking for is some advice, is some direction. Sometimes I need something a little more intense, like my therapist to say, well, for this particular issue, go and do the thing that you're scared of doing, something like exposure. How do you feel about that, and what's your experience been in general?
Well, it's definitely a fair point that you brought up. I mean, I think for me, the whole concept of person-centered therapy is not that you're just like, almost like a passive parent, just like letting your kid just do whatever you want because like whatever. Like I think the whole concept of person-centered is that you leave the floor open enough to give a client the opportunity to present what he is and what he needs. And if you sense that the client is looking for something a little bit more direct and directive oriented, that you can create that space. But the key is that you negotiate that with your client in real time rather than, assume that the client is ready to hear, oh, you need to, I don't know, you need to move out of your parents' house by tomorrow and, do whatever it takes to, do whatever, So you're really just providing space for the client to give over the sense of what he's comfortable with and what he's receptive to. And you develop a relationship gradually and with respect to the client's sensitivities over time.
I see. Sounds like a lot of attunement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious again, are there any particular issues, clinical issues, that you would say you have an expertise in or you're particularly interested in?
Well, I wouldn't say I have a particular thing that I'm focused on. I think I've been much more focused on just trying to work with clients rather than try to put a cap on, experiences. And I think, and I think stems from my belief in the inexhaustibility of the range of experiences that people carry with them. So, I do draw on different things, but I'd say mainly I'm more invested in listening and almost trying to see what the client is receptive to, nudging, if you will, rather than, oh, CBT here, trauma focused thingy there. I think again, I really think therapy is a contextual discipline rather than a textbook kind of discipline.
I see. Aside from person-centered therapy, are there other therapies that you'd say you're influenced by?
I mean, I was fascinated by personality psychology, the spirit, not the hard theories of psychoanalysis. Just the whole concept of the icebergian nature of human beings, and again, and it really just draws. I'm really interested in psychology as a humanities adjacent field, rather than a sort of a more hard science driven kind of field.
I see. That's interesting. Do you think the science of psychology is sometimes a little overstated, like a little more confident than what it should be?
I wouldn't say confident. I would say it's almost like we're having two different conversations. Like A person comes in and says, I have existential feelings of loneliness or something like that. So it's like, that's not something you could put a hard number next to. Statistics show that X amount of people experience loneliness at, springtime or summertime. And it's like, great, but, a person wants to feel like it's his loneliness that's on the table. You know what I'm saying? So science maybe brings people closer to giving clinicians a sense of where to look, but the motion of looking, the motion of searching, and searching with your patient, with your client, I think is something that should be emphasized more. And I think giving over the sense that, it's okay for clients to feel like they can inhabit the questions that they have a little bit, rather than like, what's the solution? What's the solution is definitely on the table. But there is something about sitting with ambiguity that might be lost sometimes when you're dealing with something that is interested primarily in answers.
Interesting. That's thought-provoking. So do you think that then the scientific project of psychology then can be a little bit stifling in that regard, or almost discourage exploration then? Almost like it's coming to you with an already formed answer, and there's nothing, you as an individual don't have anything necessarily to explore.
Yeah, it kind of spoils the ending or the climax, and it's almost like opening the book at the end,
I
oh,
see.
main character dies,
Yeah,
great,
I see.
So it's science is great, and it's immensely important, but we're so addicted to how illogical our life is, and we almost want it that way. We want just to inhabit, like, wow, this is so exciting, what's gonna happen, and the pursuit of answers, putting an FDA label on everything and just saying, okay, this is it, you don't have to look any further. It's like, on the one hand, it's like, great, but like, that might be great for somebody that might be exhausted from the search, but it might not necessarily speak viscerally to somebody that is energized by the search.
I love this. Yeah, super thought-provoking. I can definitely relate to that sort of dichotomy and struggling between the two. On the one hand, being very focused on my own inner world and my own exploration, but certainly also interested in psychological scholarship. Recently, I've been reading all sorts of interesting studies, but they kind of speak to the point that you're making here. I think, recently I was reading a study on exposure, and with my own anxieties, I kind of have my own approach that I've developed over time through my own experience. And in reading this study, I felt myself a little bit kind of thrown off kilter, because suddenly you feel like you need to operate according to the study, and I kind of like lose contact with myself and what, the approaches that I already take that have already been effective. Mm-hmm. Which isn't to say that they can't be improved or that reading this study couldn't be helpful. But I think this speaks a little bit to what you're saying about maybe objectifying your mind too much, as if more reading is always the answer.
Right.
And I really appreciate what you're saying. What you're talking about is almost like something like a pre-verbal experience of life. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I think music kind of forces you to confront that pre-verbal side of yourself, the side of yourself that is attracted to symbols, to mythology, to something that's not real, but feels so real that you're just like, where can I see this? Like, religion maybe has this bad rap of, oh, you're just imposing a version of reality onto the world. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, humans have been doing that forever, cave drawings and what have you. But the whole concept of embedding things into symbols, into metaverses or something like that. You know, I think it ties into something that we can't fully explain, but that we is such a part of us that questioning it or trying to cite a study for it is almost like, you know, preposterous.
Life is not lived in the objective world of science. It's subjective. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but there's a tension there because we do have to orient ourselves. We have to, you know, clothes can't be, you can't use runic symbols to create clothes. You know what I'm saying? But like when we're done with all that, once we've conquered, you know, the scientific realm, I think conquering maybe our minds, conquering our imaginations requires a certain curiosity. And you know, whatever promotes that curiosity is the type of thing that we should really just be working to maybe embrace within ourselves, and learning to just feel, experience, rather than, yes, this idea is helpful, therefore I will, you know, it's just, no, like the feeling itself is where it's at, and it feels great to feel, you know what I'm saying? You know, we don't say, I thought about this recently, it's interesting that we say that something makes sense rather than something logically comports with, you know, a very worked out theory of life or something like that. Things make sense to us before they're, you know, logical.
I'm curious to explore more where you think the balance is between rationality and feelings. Because I think that's an interesting, there can be a kind of difficult line to draw there. I've thought about this a lot myself. And especially in relation to where I guess religion kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Wherever religion enters into the picture there. Because on the one hand, like we're on the same page in terms of life needing to be lived from a place of experience, if that makes any sense,
Sure,
if I can
sure.
phrase it that way. That ultimately life is in some sense an experience of feelings. That the self, in my own work, in my own kind of psychological theorizing, the self is very important, being able to connect to the self. I think the self is essentially a variety of feelings. And then when I'm disconnected from self, it's essentially just being disconnected from feelings. Yeah, but at the same time, I do think there is, or I find the idea of objective reality compelling. And I do think, in some way, I even find that to be extremely important to the psychological project, where if your perceptions are not consistent with reality, typically that's not good mental health.
Sure.
And better mental
Sure.
health is coming back to reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my little spiel, I guess, on that. Curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean it's a very deep point, and you know, try as you might to believe that you can fly, you're not going to fly, you know, unless you work around the laws of nature, you know, the laws that science has sort of codified, you know, through observation, through study. But you know, at the same time, we're constantly negotiating our way around reality in some sense through technology, through human endeavors that seek to expand the range of possibility within objective reality. So, you know, it's true that we can't fly, but we can create technologies that work around that limitation that allow us to fly, you know. And I think religion, in a certain sense, operates like a technology in the sense that it mines what exists in reality and extracts so many different things: a sense of communal cohesion, sense of belonging, sense of meaning, personal exploration. I mean, science is great for developing technologies, but the frontier of human emotions was, under the domain of religion for a while. And it's not because people were easily duped or something like that. It's that we use these technologies, the technology of religion, to extract greatness, to extract experience, to extract the things that make us feel like what we are. We're existentially oriented beings. We're, meaning-seeking animals. We're, and we constantly seek ways to refine and develop those tendencies, through the technology of metaphysical systems and what have you.
Okay, so if I can touch on some controversial topics here now,
Okay.
now that we're here. So you and I think, would both agree about the value of religion in relation to various aspects of psychology. You talked about social cohesion. Maybe in some way it's good for society. And I do think, I guess those aspects of religion, I think, are probably its greatest value. Where I think perhaps it goes awry is in making truth claims, which aren't consistent with science. How do you feel about those aspects of religion? 'Cause we have the whole side of religion, which is, community and perhaps even ritual.
Sure.
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 But then you have claims, let's say, in the Bible about how old the world is, and you go, well, this is not exactly, 6 days old is, no matter how you cut it, is not exactly not going to cut it.
Fair enough. Listen, I mean, I'm not going to. It's not necessarily my field of study. I mean, there are very smart people that make a wide variety of claims that they provide evidence for, and I honor that and I respect that. I mean, what I will say is that, humans are always going to orient themselves around symbols, around things that objective truth doesn't point to. We can believe, in a heliocentric universe, but a heliocentric universe isn't going to help us uncover the mythology within ourselves. We want to feel like we're great. We want to feel some semblance of, like, hip hop artists, they're always, I'm this, I'm that, I'm so cool, I got a Maserati and I drove it here, and this guy can't compare, it's like, I don't know, maybe the guy lives in his mom's basement and he's still releasing mixtapes, but, the whole concept of creating a mythic sense of what we are, despite the fact that we're sacks of flesh at the end of the day with the endless amounts of needs and scientific limitations, if you will.
That hip hop example is interesting to me, because to my mind, that might be a good example of where somebody is kind of maybe compensating for some low self-esteem. So that might be a form of symbolism, which is maybe a little less ideal.
Sure. It can be entertaining, though.
Absolutely. And maybe as some sort of archetype or some sort of feeling that human beings tend to feel, at least at some points. It's a representation of something as an art, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like you were talking about, like an expression of a feeling. But I guess I'm curious to hear a little more about symbolism then.
Is there a specific facet of symbolism you're curious about, or?
Well, how it relates to psychology, how, maybe practically what sort of application, how you use symbolism in your own practice, if that makes any sense? Or do you use symbolism?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily use, I don't use it overtly, but, like, let's say somebody was going through a breakup, there are a lot of symbols attached to that. I mean, so much of, let's say, music, for example, that could be that. It's not a Jungian archetype, maybe, but it's certainly archetypal that somebody goes through a breakup and he's, going through memories and things like that, and it's like, oh, there's a whole thing there. But the whole concept of symbols is the concept of capturing a tendency that repeats itself. And the stories of the Bible are semi-symbolic in that sense, in that there is a certain snapshot of human behavior that is sort of captured, and you get to see it play itself out over and over and over again. So the actions of certain characters in literature, it's the same thing. Characters serve as symbols, and you get to extract a lot of information through the repeated study of these symbols, and that has very wide applications when it comes to interpreting human behavior and in exploring human behavior with, my clients.
So have you studied mythology at all?
I have. I mean, I'm not like a scholar on mythology per se, but I've read snippets of Russian literature.
Dostoevsky.
Oh yeah.
Are you a fan of
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson?
It's
Yeah.
I guess no more, no less than anybody that's ever run into his work.
He's a mixed bag, huh?
Yeah. I mean, but the fact that he reps Jung for me is pretty awesome. I think Jung is just like, as far as what he touches on, I think is just what human beings do. It's like again, there's no like studies show that people believe in symbols. It's like, even if people are less religious, on average nowadays, I mean, like, people would still identify as spiritual in some sense. I don't think people have completely foregone the ability to extract meaning through religion. I don't care one way or another. I'm not like, people should be Bible thumping, Midwesterners, and I think what I'm
Is that what you're saying? Already?
yes.
Put
Me on record.
We're gonna clip this. Yeah.
There you go. Snapshot with like a bad face,
Yeah.
make like a mean look at the face and just like, I think all people no, but it's still interesting. Like, yeah, it's like we haven't really let go of that tendency. We love entertainment. We love, experiencing the catharsis of seeing our lives play themselves out through imaginary, not real characters. We still love our animation. We love video games. I mean, underrated form of entertainment, I would say. But yeah, we love our myths, bro. Like 2 + 2 is 4 is not always applicable when you're dealing with things that we don't even know how the devil to classify and quantify.
So can you help me understand more how something like mythology relates to video games?
Oh man, all the time. I mean, there's this video game, God of War. I don't know if you. It started off in the Greek pantheon, like the whole. It's kind of insane. It's an insane game, but the whole concept is that the main character Kratos is was sort of tricked by the god Ares into doing a very horrible thing, and the whole game centers around his pursuit of revenge, of justice. Revenge can be a justice-oriented emotion. So symbolism is huge. I mean, there's a game that is overtly dedicated to symbolism there, but to mythology. But mythology plays itself out. The mythologies mutate. People co-opt mythology and use for their own purposes. We use mythology in everyday speech. It's it's that guy's Achilles heel. You know what I'm saying? Like, why not just say that guy's weakness? It's like, there's something about Achilles' heel. Oh, he was such a great warrior, and then the only place that he was weak was where he succumbed to whatever. Why? The pressing question is why? If science covers more and more realms of human activity, like, why are we invested in these made-up stories? It's like, but we are. It's like, yeah, Achilles' heel.
I see. Yeah. Do you think that's the sort of thing that people are playing out in a video game where, like, maybe can you take me through a particular mythology that somebody might be expressing there?
How their lives play out through mythology.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole concept of the whole concept of the Greek pantheon is fascinating. I mean, from God of War's perspective, it's like, you have this guy who faithfully serves the gods. I mean, according to the story, that's who Kratos was. And then, like, he is betrayed by Ares into doing a horrible thing. And then it's like, wow, like, I put all my trust in this authority, the unquestioning power of the gods, and suddenly it's like, why am I left with this crater in my heart? Like, what did I just do? Why did I give over my autonomy to something that hurt me in a very profound way? And that's a huge theme, especially in the West. It's like the West is sort of went all the way to the precipice in the name of Christianity, in the name of the Crusades, in the name of everything, and then it's like the cosmic joke is, haha, well, I guess it's not addressing all of your questions after all, or something like that.
I see.
But it's like, I think the West has sort of been thinking about concepts like that, and where authority ends and where autonomy begins is such a huge thing, and it's captured in the mythology, the symbolism of a video game like God of War, even Greek mythology also, like, all sorts of things.
Do I have any more questions on this? Do you have anything more you want to say on the topic?
I could keep going, but but it's up to you. But
By all means.
yeah, no, it's like I said, I really think it's how human beings orient themselves. I mean, the whole concept maybe of, I don't want to say, like, I'm not an expert on it, but like prophetic states, trance-induced states. It's like, we orient ourselves to these symbols, and it's not that I don't even think it's a concern of like having something literally talk to us, but it's, we orient ourselves or meditate strongly to orient ourselves to something that we ultimately become the arbiters of, in some sense. I think that's what prayer is. I think that's what, trance-induced states sort of point to. We're trying to embody something that we didn't start off being able to embody, that we believe in.
Can you show me how that might look in relation to prayer?
Well, we meditate on God's, like, attributes of mercy, of kindness. We sort of, align ourselves with our own vulnerabilities, and I think we are able to sort of set intentions about ourselves, like, by virtue of that process, And it's like, prayer is not. I don't think prayer is an idle thing that way. It's not that we're wishing for a magic genie. We're wishing for things from a magic genie or from Santa Claus, and he comes through the chimney or something like that. Fun myth, but what kind of chocolate chip cookies does he like? I don't know. It's we never really.
I have wondered that.
Right?
Times,
It's
yeah.
What if Santa doesn't like your chocolate chip cookies? It's
God.
Like, dark chocolate.
Yeah.
Devil with that. But,
Dark chocolate, the enemy of good chocolate.
that's a debatable point. So.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, we can hash that one out.
Come here.
Yeah.
Old school Victorian pugilism.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, when you're punching yourself.
Yeah, that was the old position,
Yeah.
Rather than Mike Tyson.
I see. Yeah.
But to the question, what was the question?
How
Prayer.
this plays out in prayer, right?
No, it's not. God's not a genie. God is something that we orient ourselves to, and orient ourselves, and in the humility in not being able to orient ourselves to something that never ends. In some paradoxical way, I think we find our sort of infinite potential through that. If we sense what's lacking within ourselves, the fact that we can do better in emulating God, so to speak, we're able to find the range of, let's say, exploration that we're capable of tapping into through the intentions that we set, and both through maybe the vulnerability that we sit with.
Tell me more. Like, what might that look like? What sort of issue might I come to prayer with that prayer is then working me through?
Let's say you're looking for a job. You're kind of tired of the 9-to-5 grind, or maybe it's later nowadays since things are expensive, but like, God, like, I'm so lost, like, please help me find a job that works for me. Personal prayer is an amazing thing for that also. I mean, that's a fun thing. But you know, you're sitting with the fact that you're vulnerable, that you're not happy with your job, that you are not aware of what's out there, you're trying to figure it out. And then suddenly you're confronted with this, you know, I believe that God sort of speaks to you through your vulnerabilities, but but you're tapped into the mystery of your existence, and that inspires a curiosity and maybe a certain wonder that you wouldn't have found had life been, peachy and full of certainty and full of maybe objectifiable things that define your life.
What do you mean by tapped into the mystery of your existence?
You're suddenly confronted with how much there is that you can do with your own life. You're not stuck in a cubicle. You're not stuck in X location with X amount of finances. There's always room for you to tap into something more than what you have, what you work towards, even what you're presented with. And
Wait, so if I'm approaching prayer with, you were saying looking for a job, or what was it again?
yeah, let's say looking for a
Let's
job.
say looking for a job. Where does all of that mystery arise in this process, right? Like I'm sitting here, let's say, praying to God sitting with this feeling that I don't have a job, that I need a job. Where does all that mystery come in?
Well, let's say it could even be even more fine-tuned in the sense that maybe you have a job and you just want something better, and you were previously comfortable with this situation that you were in, and now you're not, and rather than just surrender to the situation and just work a job that you don't like, you're sort of taking the courageous step to maybe stepping into the waters of unknown territory and say, wow, like, what's out there for me? What can I look into? What room is there for me to explore, to inhabit? Who can I talk to? And prayer allows you to set that intention for yourself and to be receptive to things that you might not otherwise have been able to tap into had you rested on your laurels. I'll go here, I'll talk to that guy, and things, there are experiences that expand us rather than experiences that we're able to quantify for ourselves. And it's not to say, oh, humanity is weak and frail, therefore religion. It's humanity is weak and frail in certain instances, no matter how much we demonstrate our aptitude for conquering nature, for developing, let's say, coherent societies where we're able to live comfortably. There's always the looming question of what are we at the end of it all, and is there always more?
So just to drill down a little more,
Sure.
I almost feel like you've got like a prayer therapy thing here, right? I guess two things are coming to mind here. One is asking God for help in this process, an aspect of this therapeutic prayer. That would be one. And what really makes this any different than something like exposure therapy, where I see therapy in general as kind of a spiritual practice, at least what I would call good therapy, sure, which includes like confronting reality as it is and exploring or discovering a more authentic part of who you are. So what makes prayer unique in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful that you say that therapy is a spiritual discipline, but it really speaks to the power of spirituality. I mean, I'm not a believer in as much as I aspire to live up to like the tenets of like Judaism and the practice and everything like that. Like, I think spirituality is something that touches at the core of what makes each person who he is, the spirit of life, that sort of thing. And absolutely asking for help is part of it, but like people lose faith because they're so invested in the outcome, and for very compelling reasons. I mean, a lot of bad things happen out there in the world, and I'm not here to minimize any of it, but when you I feel like if you look to God as an outcome generator, you kind of lose the capacity to feel that same tendency within yourself.
Agreed. And there's like an uncertainty and tolerance there. So not confronting reality in a certain profound sense.
Yeah, and not being afraid to sit with your potential, and religion that serves as a substitute for human potential is something that ultimately generates apathy, because again, like we're I mean, can I curse in this or?
I would love if you did.
Okay, no, but
Yeah.
I'm very intentional about that, and also, but I think there is something of a bullshit detector in human beings, and I think Psalms also mentions that, which is fascinating. Tehillim says, "Taste and see that God is good."
That's a good pasuk. That's good.
Tamu Ruki Tov
Yeah.
Hashem.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like you're telling me to taste. Like you told me to keep this, keep that, do this. What do you mean? It's like, yeah, like you'll see, you'll enjoy it. And like, okay, fine, whatever. Oh dear, oh my gosh, yeah, this is kind of cool. I like it. It feels good. Tom, like something that appeals to your senses, to your experience. So yeah, I mean, like, I think like once prayer is understood as something that you orient yourself around rather than, please God, give me this. You are tapped into the function of prayer, and also you're tapping into something that I think you naturally feel if your guard is sufficiently lowered so that you're open to what this mysterious flow or whatever, however you want to classify it, is sort of communicating through you. And it's, I think that's where awe comes in. It's like, you should fear whatever, fear God, fear whatever. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, it's not drill sergeant fear as much as it's the humility of just the range of possibilities within yourself. You can be humbled by yourself. Is that egotistical? I don't think so. The self is a very translucent thing that just radiates and generates and generates and generates, and that fills one with like, whoa, like.
Okay, that's interesting. I want to explore that with you, but before we go there, I guess I'm still curious what role God plays in this kind of prayer. It sounds like you're saying, you're coming to prayer, sitting with your desire for life to be better, considering the possibilities of life, where you're not asking God to make things better, right? So what role is he playing?
I mean, human speech doesn't fully capture it. Human speech just provides some reference, I think, but God is infinite, and we're kind of scared of that. We're humbled by that. So the role that God plays is, however you want to say it. These are just clumsy strokes. Personal trainer. Whatever. The whole gamut of, cute motivational books that are out there, but we don't fully know. We don't fully know, but we experience it based on the type of life that we're trying to live for ourselves, and whatever we believe in most strongly, belief, right, is what God is to us. If God is the thing that if let's say you connect through music, God is found there. If you connect to God through, whatever it is that you're doing, God's knowledge, wisdom is embedded in whatever human beings decide to do. And that points both to the definition of things, but also to the infinite potential that is embedded in all things.
I'm not sure I'm following. Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
Are we redefining God then potentially into something a little atypical?
Maybe,
Or-
but I don't think it's something that runs counter to the spirit of what has been said about God.
No, fair, but like maybe something a little more mythological, something a little more like Jordan Peterson, who's you ask him what God is, and it's you're
I don't know.
yeah exactly yeah. It's your highest goals. Yeah.
I mean, Nietzsche said the same thing. To be fair, so he viewed religion as an orienting mechanism, even though he didn't believe in religion. But
It would take me 60,000 years to tell it to you. I don't.
I mean, imagining Nietzsche with a Jordan Peterson affect is kind of terrifying.
Yeah,
but,
that's hilarious, dude. Imagining anybody with the Jordan Peterson affect is hilarious
the
to me.
lobster hierarchies.
Yeah. I want the triple cheeseburger, but it's like you gave me the double. Yeah.
Yeah, he's sort of slowly mutating into Mickey Mouse. Also. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Diabetes. High cholesterol.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that diabetes video? Diabetes.
Yeah, that old guy. I was a kid when those commercials were on TV. I'm like,
Oh, wow. Nice.
Resurrected
Yeah.
memes, like
Yeah.
he has risen,
And that's what that really means,
There you go.
Mythology, baby.
There you go. He is risen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to the question, what was the original?
Well, I guess I'm trying to understand where God plays a role in this process of prayer, and it sounds like you're defining God maybe a little more vaguely, maybe perhaps in the spirit of Judaism, but not necessarily as the creator of the universe who's going to give you good shit.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of hold by those things, but they're more of a peripheral thing. I think in a clumsy way, I'm trying to sort of give humanity a sense of their own greatness. By Jews say that we human beings are partners with God in creation, that we're made in God's image. So, that's fun and all, but what does that mean? And it's like there's no real. I mean, okay, keep Torah and mitzvahs, okay, but sure, but what about the other cool shit that we've been doing? I mean, what about the mythology almost of people like Tesla? Talking about creating all these, tapping into the currents that exist in the air. What the hell does that mean? And it's like, you read about Tesla and he creates all of these. He creates things that we still don't fully know what they are. And for me, I get the impression of somebody that was tapped into something that never exhausted itself. It seems that God is sort of this thing that we're sort of constantly chasing, but never quite knowing when we've arrived there. I keep going back to this thing in Song of Songs where, we're constantly chasing our beloved and back and forth, that whole thing. And at the very end, it's so strange. Spoiler alert, but we the beloved tells God, as it were, depart, my beloved, make yourself like a gazelle. After we've spent literally the entirety of the Song of Songs chasing after our beloved, we ask God to go away. It's like, what's the point? But from what I'm sensing, it's that exact relationship. We want this assistance. We want maybe the scaffolding of something that is more knowledgeable than us to help ground us in whatever it is that we're trying to do, the kind of life that we're trying to live. But once we're there, it's like, go away. It's like, what do you mean go away? It's like, yeah, I'm good. I want to do this now. I want to be awesome now. I want to be the thing that I work to orient myself towards.
Could God in this way then perhaps be defined as like the source of creativity?
I mean, to put it more broadly, the source of generativity within human beings. And creativity, the subjective experience, is incredibly important because it does play into adaptability, and we do need a form of infinite adaptability to adapt to any situation that arises. Like, science doesn't account for what we do when the rules have been established, when we've discovered that gravity exists and things like that. Like, we need to know, and that's endless. That's contextual to every single person. Like, you found parking today. I don't know if you drive, but like, I found parking today, and I did it the way that I do it. And like, so there's an objective reality of knowing how to parallel park, and there's also the subjectivity of Ariell Bitton just working his way around life, sometimes fumbling around, sometimes circling around the same block until he finds somebody that leaves. But it's my experience, like, and nobody can tell me what that experience feels like, looks like, sounds like. You can come close, you can come really close, and I think that's how we're able to sort of be coherent to each other. But what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours.
And you use the term generativity
Generativity, yeah.
to express that, or
Yeah.
if you can help me define that, what does that mean?
Well, we're constantly generating insight, solutions, context. Yeah, and I think, again, I think generativity and creativity are very close in that regard, in the sense that both of those things allow us to generate, to create solutions or insight to whatever situation that we're in, for whatever.
I see. But potential?
Among other things.
Yeah. I'd like to move on to some music stuff, because
Sure.
that's your other expertise.
Sure.
We spoke a little prior to the pod about I guess some new avenues you've been going down music wise, right? What
Yeah.
can you tell me about that?
Yeah, fair. So, I mean, I would say that it's new, but I always felt myself to be a very curious person when it came to music, and maybe that has to do with the fact that music is everywhere in today's modern society. But yeah, like, I always was just curious about what was out there, what people were doing. It's like, I'm also interested in source, maybe, like, as a concept. So
Wait, so could you say that source?
source, yeah, origins,
Oh, understood.
yeah.
Yeah.
And my curiosity with that sort of prompted me to look into blues music when people were throwing the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and things like that into the fray. Like, okay, and they say, oh, like, this artist was profoundly influenced by Robert Johnson, and it's like, oh, okay, like, who's Robert Johnson? And being a child of the internet age with an internet connection, you do a little research, you do a little digging, and lo and behold, you see Robert Johnson, and you see his compilation, and I went to the crossroads. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Like,
Sing to me, baby.
oh yeah, yeah, and again, the mythology of blues music is like that's it's mad fun. It's raunchy as all hell, but it's endlessly fascinating and very human. There's a real humanity to blues mythology, to the lives of blues artists themselves, and it really ties into the brutal realities that they were operating under. Not besides the fact that they were, in segregated contexts with all of the brutal realities that included. They were very rough they had very rough lives. There was a lot of jealousy, competition, you know, cutthroat stuff happening that leaves you in a sense of maybe curiosity, fascination. And so as far as like new direction, I don't know. I feel like just music has always been cyclical for me. So I'm just been exploring a lot of just a lot of different textures and avenues, more in the spirit of not. I think the most contemporary iteration of what I've been doing is that I've been less and less dependent on genres and really just trying to almost unconsciously just trying to tap into associations that I feel between genres. You know,
Fusion music?
yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Jazz fusion?
You got me foiled again.
I'm sorry. Was it no good to put a label to it?
Yeah,
Did
no.
Did I just diagnose your music?
Gosh, like fusion sounds like you sound like a struggling restaurant. Or
Yeah,
something.
it does sound a little bit like that. I agree.
Thai Japanese fusion.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah.
But it's like here, sushi and glass noodles. I don't know. It's like again, that's. But for lack of a better term, if you want to call it fusion, you can call it fusion. I mean, hibachi steaks and Italian dishes. But
I see.
But yeah, I don't know. But more spiritual. Fusion is a very aesthetic term, and I'm more interested in the spirituality that is embedded in music, and that ties into the whole discussion of some symbolism and all that sort of thing. I don't know, like, yeah. I mean, any other? Are you curious about other facets of that, or?
Maybe a bit of a side tangent, but have you seen Engine du Poitrine?
Angine de Poitrine.
Poitrine, yeah.
Yeah, microtonal.
Microtonal stuff, huh?
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
That stuff's fun. I mean, truthfully, like I'm interested in music that's not tied to a grid. I don't want to say arrhythmic, but maybe more focused on color, on tonality rather than tonality that is subject to rhythm. So it's a bit of a nerdy thing, but I like contemporary composers. I like maybe Brian Eno. I think I don't know how many people know about him, but he's sort of an ambient artist. He produced people like Coldplay.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's interesting because Brian Eno himself said that he wasn't a musician, and I'm like, but I like what I'm hearing. So it's like, ooh, okay, that's interesting. So, you know, stuff like, there was also a recent thing that I came across where, you know, Wayne Shorter, a saxophonist that I really like, he recalls Miles Davis. You know, he's this brooding, sunglasses-wearing, you know, night creature, you know, who he lost his voice because he spoke after he was operated on his throat for something that he had. So his voice was always like this, you know. So Wayne Shorter recalls a bit with Miles Davis, and he goes, "Hey Wayne, you ever wanted to make music that didn't sound like music?" So I'm just like thinking like, wow, isn't that a contradiction, you know?
Yeah.
But like, you know, Taoist proverbs that don't make sense, but like that kind of open something like.
But I feel like thinking about Miles Davis, I'm like, yeah, some of that stuff is like super experimental and interesting.
Yeah, very hedonistic in a very spiritual way, you know.
Hedonistic in a spiritual way.
Yeah.
Is that the way you would describe Miles Davis's music?
I would say so. I mean, Train is very like pastoral and is like, oh, salvation and, you know, humanity, you know, on the precipice of being redeemed. It's like, okay, man. It's like, you know, like Miles Davis is more like roll around in the field, that sort of thing, and like the colors that he throws in are just so gratifying, you know. So there's something about color that I've been really fascinated by. I love visual styles that feel musical to me, you know, like the styles of Michel Basquiat, you know, maybe some Rothko, but something that's more evocative, maybe late period Picasso, that sort of thing, you know. Art that's more suggestive rather than art that has to capture human beings in a perfect form, you know, like people talk about, oh, art's declining, like you hear like a certain like conservative, like, oh, art's declining, it's very subjective, it's like, but that's what makes it interesting. If you spend your entire life just like trying to paint like, Da Vinci, who was inexhaustible in and of itself, like, okay, we've reached our beloved, but now we want our beloved to go away. We want, it's the sin of the first man, right? Like, yeah, great, sure, paradise. And it was like, okay, like that was fun. Let's do something else now,
I see. This feels a little like the idea in Chassidus of Ratzei V'Shuv.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you here? Like ascending to God, so to speak, in some sense, and then coming back down?
Maybe
finding
it's,
inspiration or exploring something deeper and then coming back and actually doing something?
I mean, I feel like it's more to take like an often used thing, a Yerida Letzorach Aliyah, in the sense that we're sort of wallowing in the whole thing, and it's like our spirits are soaring through that, like, this is so great, like, literally, like, not literally, but like, you're sort of like in the trenches, let's say, of the whole thing, in the trenches of your process, in the trenches of something you're working through, your music, like Miles Davis had that swampiness to him,
Interesting.
that swagger of like trying to work through something,
So it's in a way it's the opposite of Ratzei V'Shuv then. It's going down to come back up in some sense.
Is it like Shuv Varatzo? I
Yeah,
don't know if there's
maybe.
an inverse, an inverse relationship there.
You
but,
heard it here first, folks. We have a new philosophy coming out.
Radical.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Philosopher Ariell Bitton, on the other hand. Yeah.
You're right. I'm in my underwear, just like chin stroking.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I'd come to your prayer services, bro.
hell
I feel
yeah. Sign-ups welcome.
Yeah, especially if you come without, if you're coming with the underwear and the guitar.
Chin stroking
I'm
for
in.
Brangans. We're coining new. But yeah, I don't know. It's the messiness for me that's profound, and I think that's I think Hasidus really deals with that. It really deals with, to take another Nietzschean term, the Dionysian. Dionysus is the party god. He's kind of like portrayed as this like violent and explosive, character who's just having a great time, but there's a lot of chaos that is part of having a great time, There's a lot of the impulses that are not desirable, but that's where we find ourselves through the, let's say, orgiastic mess, let's say, of our lives. And it's fascinating because there are overtones to messianism that are inherent to that, which is why it's both a dangerous concept maybe, but also the one with the most potential to energize us and to elevate us. I'm fascinated, let's say, by concepts like entropy, where something that's chaotic is used potentially for something that is generative. Nuclear reactors, from what I've gathered, you rely on entropy to generate energy, which is like, nuclear reactors have a lot of energy, right? So it's like, it got me thinking, like, I'm self-taught, so I have sort of dwelt and worked through musical ideas, but I've sort of reached a snag where it's like, okay, like, I know what to play here, and that's well and good, but why is it feeling like this, And maybe exploring, let's say, the output of musicians like Miles Davis, the music of musicians that are not musicians, It's like, and that sort of put me in the same ranks as Zen philosophers, Zen Buddhist practitioners, mystics of every stripe. I think they're all beneficial. to the edifice of humanity. I think maybe this is radical to say, but I think Judaism is sort of aiding in the process of discovery, of spirituality, of growth, rather than God has a finite amount of things that he wants humans to do, you know?
Heresy. Get him.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
barred from my minion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, no chin stroking for you.
Understood.
No chin stroke for you.
That's a good reference, dude.
That's yeah. But can't unsee that right now.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll think about pink elephants instead. But,
Okay.
or we won't.
That's good.
Yeah, but gosh, yeah, but again, like that's what I think that's what we say when we say that mankind is beloved. It says Chaviv Adam Anivra B'Tselem, right? You know, we're beloved because we are infinite, like our God is infinite, you know, and there's something inexhaustible to that, and this whole concept of descending for the sake of elevating is very clarifying, and I think that's something that ties into spiritual traditions that span eons, you know, like mystical traditions, the whole range of it, you know. Yeah, I think a lot of my music has been exploring just that sort of relationship, and I'm always learning more, you know. And again, I'm hesitant to be fully definitional here because again, like, you know, I don't want to say that, oh, I've been studying Zoroastrian classical music. You know, it's like, okay, that's a fun thing, but like, you know, I'm always trying to see if there's a universal tendency that is inherent in these traditions, you know. And I enjoy music a lot more when I approach it from that angle. I love Persian classical music. I love Turkish music. I love you know, blues music, which is, you know, talking about source. I mean, you know, once I discovered that blues was the origin of rock, you know, West African Mali music, you know.
What does that relate to?
Well, there's a lot of study that indicates that a lot of West African traditions migrated when they were brought over, because a lot of slaves, from what I understand, were brought over from West Africa to the United States. So there's a lot of talk about these traditions surviving in some form through blues music, through whatever.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, it all ties into just how circular things feel. Like we touch on the same points, but we never feel like we exhaust them.
Like it kind of like a spiral that we're continuously exploring the same territory, but going deeper and deeper into it. In
Oh,
some
sure.
sense.
That's a great point.
Does that imagery resonate with you on this point?
Sure. I didn't even think about it like that, but that makes a whole lot of sense. But it's also maybe dreamlike in the sense that maybe there's a certain deja vu that we experience. You know, in the sense that, you know, have you ever seen the movie Groundhog Day?
Sure.
So it's kind of like that. It's like, you know, there's something like why go into that territory at all? But it's like that's kind of what our lives are like. It's like, wait, I was here, but oh, I remember I have to do this thing that I'm trying to like rectify, and you're just like, it's like this paradoxical get me the hell out of here, and like, oh, okay, now that I'm here, maybe there are some things that I've been thinking about that I'm trying to address, and the symbolism of that whole repetition, you know, inspires us and draws things out of us. And it's interesting because I do remember learning that there are some strands of Buddhism that focus on doing repetitive actions, even mundane things, and that's a form of meditation. You know, so
this sounds familiar to me too. I'm trying to think. I'm gonna have to look into that after this, because that does resonate with me.
I mean, yeah, and the whole concept of work songs. You know, people sort of, you know,
wade through the water.
yeah, you know, whatever it is, but like that whole concept of something is hypnotic to us, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by drone traditions. Indian classical music has that. There's a whole instrument that's dedicated to repetition, which is the tanpura. You're just playing the same wash of notes over and over and over again.
Interesting.
You know, and you solo over that. You know, Indian classical musicians solo over that. I mean, that sort of thing. I don't think it necessarily migrated, but there was a lot of dialogue between these civilizations: Indian civilization, Persian civilization, Arabic civilization. So it's fascinating because you see a lot of Indian instruments, and it's like, oh, that looks like an Afghan instrument, you know, albeit heavily modified. I mean, Indian instruments are ginormous looking and like very impressive. The sitar I don't think I haven't read anything official, but the sitar is a derivative of the Persian setar. And if you look at pictures, they're geometrically, they look very similar. The sitar is played with a finger pick called a mizrab. And in Persian music, you also play the sitar with your first finger. And Persians call the thing that you use, if you don't have a fingernail, a mezrab. So, you know, similarities, dialogue, communication. But the whole concept of drone, you know, is fascinating. You hear it in Arabic music also, you know, like it's kind of stereotypical, but like there's like a, and you know, the oud is playing.
I see.
So I'm enthralled by that. I think it's a metaphor for God almost, or for silence, you know, like, you know, God is sort of this constant presence, this constant wash of nuclear energy or something, you know. It's the hum of our nervous system, and what we do over that is.
I'm trying to find a word right now. The way you speak is almost, you know, give me a second. Synesthesia. It's almost synesthetic, if that's a word.
Synesthetic.
Yeah. The way you kind of flow between imagery and, you know, there's art and music. Can I ask you, like, would you say you are synesthetic?
If you want an answer, then I'll give you an answer. I'll say yes. But I guess I'm more. I try to think of music as dreams, or as like a character, or as like a skit or something. It's like, this reminds me of this, you know, thing here. You know, so synesthesia is more color. You associate music with color, like that's blue. It's like, okay, that's.
But couldn't it be tastes as well, or just another sense, right? It's like a mixture of senses.
Okay, I mean, I always heard it in association with color, but if that,
maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, that was my understanding of it.
If that's the definition, then I would be in agreement with that. But I think, yeah, I don't know, like I don't have a full concept for it, and I kind of like the tension of that, you know. I like the tension of that. I was also fascinated by a concept in Jewish law, where, you know, when you have a new house, you know, you're doing everything connected to the house, and you leave a part of your house like unpainted, unfinished, essentially. And it's like, okay, fine, you know, like Zecher or the Churban Beit HaMikdash, but it's like, okay, great, like, but that's not fun, you know. But like, the concept of something being unfinished is like, whoa, like, yeah, you know, like Franz Kafka has that sort of thing for me, where it's like a dream that's not finished, and you're sort of like sweating through this dream. You're sort of like, what's going on? And it's like, I'm fascinated by that. It's like he ties it into government bureaucracy also, which is like
interesting.
The funniest thing ever, because it's like bureaucracies are the most boring thing ever, and he finds the transcendent in that. And it's like the boredom through which we associate bureaucracy with is profound, you know. It's like, okay, you know, I'm a low-level worker, and I received word from a higher-level worker that you go here, and then you just like, go over to this other department, and this low-level worker doesn't know what you're talking about. Then he goes to his superior, and his superior sends you back to the original location where you went, and you go, but I already came from that location. And it's like this, it's so mysterious, like how, bureaucratic structures are maybe miraculous.
I see.
I don't know.
Okay, interesting.
But life doesn't make sense. The more we try to make it make sense, life sort of makes it make less sense. So
There is a mystery here for sure. Alrighty, and as we get ready to play some music, I'm going to outro now and say thank you for everybody who came and watched. Thank you, Ariell Bitton, for hanging out today. This has been fantastic. And I'll see you guys again on the next one. And sending love to you all.
this is a mean old world. Try living by yourself. This is a mean old world. Maybe living by yourself. Cause you can't get the one you love. Got to find somebody else. You know I drink to keep from working, and I smile to keep from crying. You know I drink to keep from worrying, and I smile to keep from crying. That's to keep the public from knowing exactly what I've got on my mind. Hey, 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 hey. Whoa, oh, hey. Whoa, oh, yeah. Whoa, no, no, Sometimes I wonder why can your love be so cold? Yeah, sometimes I wonder why can your love be so cold? And I knew that you didn't love me. I saw you the other day with Mr. So-and-so.